I truly believe that the future of e-commerce is in scientific, data-driven marketing. And this is not just any kind of data, it is specifically data and data-driven analytics that will help you make better decisions, whether it's in your email marketing, in your Facebook ads, or anything else that you do for your e-commerce brand. And so one of the main things that I want to talk about in this channel with regards to Klaviyo is that your attribution is not necessarily correct. Like, you don't really know how much money you're really making with emails and how much the real revenue of your campaigns is with regards to your email marketing. And so in this video, I want to talk about 3 specific things that you can use to know the real ROI of your email campaigns. And if you implement these 3, you won't have an exact number, but you will come much closer to the number that is shown on the Klaviyo dashboard. So the first thing that you can look at is whether or not they bought what you promoted. So think about any email campaign that you've done in the past. You probably promoted certain products or certain collections in that email campaign, and the only actual way to measure the direct success of that particular email campaign is to measure how many people actually bought the products or the collections that you promoted versus how many people bought something else, right? And this way you can actually measure how your copy performed, how your design performed, and how your products are performing, right? And this is the most direct way to measure email campaign ROI, but we're going to talk about a bit more in the near future. But for now, here's how you can look at the actual campaign ROI for the products that you promoted. So the first thing that you need to do is literally just go into the individual campaign analytics. So you're going to see a list of campaigns. In the list of campaigns, you want to go into any campaigns analytics, literally just click on the campaign. And then once you click on them, there's going to be a number for the revenue. Under that number for the revenue, there is going to be the number of recipients, and that will be a link. When you click that link, you will be taken to a separate page where you can see every single person who bought from that email. And when you click on the profile of every single person, you'll be able to see what they actually purchased. And from that, you can deduce whether or not they purchased the right thing that you wanted to promote, or they purchased something else. Now, if they purchased something else, that doesn't mean the campaign did not perform. It just didn't perform exactly as you expected. This will happen with literally every single campaign, right? People don't always want to buy the thing that you promote. Sometimes it does happen, sometimes it doesn't. So this is not a complete way to measure the campaign ROI, but it definitely is one data point that you can use in your measurements. Now, this is also very tedious, and this is the second thing that I want to talk about is like actual data analytics is not something that can be done by a human being. It's always done by a computer. And so this particular way of measuring your campaigns as well, it's also data analytics, and it can't be done by a human being. It can, and you can definitely measure it for every single campaign. I've done it in the past for my clients, but it becomes a lot more difficult, especially when you have a lot of email recipients and therefore a lot of people who place an order. Going into every single person's profile becomes extremely tedious. And so I'm going to come out with a tool for this, that one of the features of that tool is going to be this to help you measure your campaign ROI properly. Now, the second data point that you can use is whether or not they bought something after clicking on the email, even if they did not buy the thing that you promoted. Now, if they bought the thing that you promoted, you can almost always be sure that that person looked at your email and was enticed to buy that specific product, right? But a lot of times they will buy something else. Now, the way that you can measure whether or not this purchase of this person was a result of the campaign that you just sent is by looking at whether or not this person actually clicked on your email before purchasing that specific product. Now, it might not be the same thing that you promoted, but as long as this person went through your campaign to purchase that thing, that means your campaign actually did something that actually made something happen that made this customer purchase your product. Now, what could also happen here is that they did not directly click on the email, but they opened the email and then they went to your website, either on their phone or their desktop. A lot of times what happens is people will look at the email on their phone, and then they will go to their laptop or their PC, whatever it might be, and they will actually make the purchase on the desktop version of your site instead of the mobile version. And so Klaviyo won't really show that they clicked on your email, but that purchase definitely counts as a direct effect of your campaign. And so if you see someone who viewed an email and within the hour they went on your website and purchased, even if they did not click on the campaign, that usually means that this purchase was also an effect of your email campaign. Now, again, this is also tedious, and so this task is not always feasible for a human being to do, and that's why tools are extremely useful for this purpose. Now, if none of those two things actually happen, then there is a third possibility which is that the purchase was attributed by Klaviyo to this campaign because of something called delayed attribution. And if you don't know what delayed attribution is, it's basically Klaviyo has a window of 5 days from open. That means if someone places an order on your website 5 days after looking at any email from you, then that email will get the attribution for that purchase. So let's say I've opened an email from you. I don't do anything. I wait 5 days and then go to your website and make a purchase. That purchase counts as being attributed to this email. Now, the problem with that, and it's very understandable that people have this problem with a lot of campaigns, is that this very quickly muddies the waters, right? It very quickly makes it so that you can't fully trust the attribution that Klaviyo is providing to you. And I understand that, and I agree, but also not completely, because even as someone who is not a freelancer, not an agency, I don't have any vested interest in making, in inflating Klaviyo attribution numbers. I still believe that the attribution of Klaviyo is closer to reality than a lot of these people think who always attack the attribution system of Klaviyo. So let me explain, right? Let's say you have received 30 emails from a brand. That means you have received and opened 30 different marketing messages from a brand in the channel of email marketing. Now, if you make a purchase 10 days after receiving an email and you haven't opened any email for 10 days, but you have seen 30 different marketing messages from a brand that have convinced you that this product is worth buying, and then you end up buying it 10 days later, do you think that product should be attributed to the marketing channel that convinced you to buy the product? Yes, it should, but it would not happen because Klaviyo's attribution window is only 5 days. Now that's an extreme example, but you can see now that the 5-day attribution window was set for a very specific reason. And the reason is that you're constantly getting emails from this brand, and eventually those emails will have an effect. And so any purchase that you make in the future should be attributed to your email marketing revenue. So I do think that Klaviyo's 5-day window for opens makes sense in that regard, but a lot of times, yes, it does mess up, where, for example, someone has only received one email and then they buy 5 days later. I'm pretty sure that email did not do anything to make that person buy it. So to understand which purchases are actually properly attributed to your campaigns and flows, you'd have to do the same thing. Go to the person profile, look at how many emails they've received. If they received a good number of emails, you can probably be sure that the purchases that they make in the future are probably attributed to your emails if they are. Now again, it's extremely tedious and should definitely not be done by any human being, not even a VA, because it's completely, it's not useful. But if there was a tool to do this, it would be very useful, right? So because I'm making a Klaviyo SaaS in the future, I will probably incorporate this inside the tool itself just because it just makes sense. Now, another thing I want to talk about is what is the real attributed revenue of your welcome series. Now, this is a really hot topic in the email marketing space because the people who view your welcome series are directly coming from your Facebook ads, and most of them buy on the first day of signing up. Usually they buy instantly. And so the question naturally arises is, how much did that welcome email really do to contribute to your revenue? And there's no easy answer to this because you never really know what's going on in that person's mind when they're making that purchase, right? But what I would say is that the welcome series is heavily inflated revenue because like agencies and freelancers obviously have an interest in flaunting their welcome series revenue, and I don't blame them. I was one of them by myself at some point. But if you think about it, if you really put some thought to what that person is doing, you realize that the flow is targeting every single person who is coming from ads, number one, and number two is not subscribed to your emails yet. And so this is everyone who they might have received multiple Facebook ads, or they might have just got one. They came to your website, they saw the pop-up form, and they decided to put in their email and receive the welcome series, right? Now, this person who signs up to your welcome series is, number one, they're interested in the product itself. That's why they clicked on your ads. That's why they came to your website. That's why they submitted the pop-up form, right? And number two, they were interested in buying your product because what they did is they submitted your pop-up form, which had an incentive, right? It usually has 10% off, $10 or whatever it might be. They wanted that discount. That means they had some sort of desire to buy a product, otherwise they would not submit such a pop-up form. And so that tells you two things. So based on those two things, you can easily deduce that this person intended to buy before even signing up. And the other question is, how many people did not need a discount to make a purchase, but you gave one to them anyway? And so now they're going to make a purchase with that discount. And so now your profit is going to be lower because you offered that discount. You can't really account for all of this with your welcome series, but this sort of information is important to know, because a lot of times you will put a lot of, like, you'll think that your welcome series is doing so much work when it is probably doing less work than you think. It's definitely very useful to have a welcome series, especially a good welcome series. Very useful to have a good pump for everything, right? But the actual amount of revenue that you're getting from the welcome series is not always what is shown in the Klaviyo dashboard. That's all I'm saying. So these are the 4 ways in which you can look at your email marketing or Klaviyo attribute revenue. And honestly, it does kind of suck that you'll never really have the real numbers. You'll never really know the exact amount of revenue that your emails produced. But this gives you a lot more insight into what is really happening behind the scenes and who is really making those purchases and why they're making those purchases. That's all for this video. Subscribe and like, and I'll see you later.